Welcome back. Welcome back. Welcome back to the MixNSingle podcast on another lovely Monday evening. We are sitting with our hosts, Tony Massey Speaks, and Onay, the CEO. And I am T. Dot. And welcome back. I'm glad to be home.
Look, you calm, but we ain't calm.
Why
We
y'all
are
calm?
excited
I
that
am
T.
calm.
Dot is back in the house.
Yeah.
We missed you last week.
Thank you. I missed you guys too. I had to heal,
Yes.
so I'm home. Onay, did you miss me?
I did. I missed you terribly.
Fake.
I really did. She gave the best hugs.
You guys did an amazing job last week with JJ on the mic.
That was a fun
I
show.
really, really enjoyed that. And if you missed it out there, make sure you go to our YouTube page and on our YouTube MixNSingle and catch that last episode where they were talking about domestic violence and checking for signs of
Yes.
potential abuse and things of that nature in relationships. So today,
Mm.
continuing on in that manner for the month of October,
Yes. Celebrating
domestic
mental health.
violence awareness, we are speaking with the Dr. Jasmine Boone, who is the owner of Just You Therapy.
Youth therapy.
Yes, youth therapy.
Yes.
Okay. www.justyoutherapy.com. So, Dr. Boone, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
We're so excited to have you.
I'm
I know
excited too.
you and I have been texting,
This
and
is
I'm
going
like,
to be good. I'm
hey,
excited.
I like her. Yeah, we might bring her back more often because she is a wealth of knowledge, and her spirit is amazing. She's such a
Aw.
sweetheart, and I've enjoyed kind of chit-chatting with her a little bit. So today we're going to talk about you.
Okay.
Tell us about your journey, and
Mm-hmm.
how did you become the Dr. Jasmine Boone that we see today, and on the interwebs, and on Instagram, and on
All that
Facebook,
good
and all that
stuff.
stuff. Yeah.
Um.
Oh, and KTSU.
Yes. KTSU shout out. Impact
TSU.
you time. Well, if we're going all the way back,
Yeah.
as far as like academics and all that good
Okay.
stuff, I would say my journey started in middle school.
Wow.
Right.
Okay. Okay.
Crazy thing is I had so many students, friends, peers just telling me like they've been molested and they've been this
Wow.
and they've been that.
Wow.
And it was actually my mom who said, you need to look into psychology, counseling, something like that. And I was like, okay. And so it really just kind of started there. I kind of had a fork in the road where I couldn't decide between being an attorney or a therapist, and brother.
Come on, choices.
Yeah.
Wow.
You can be both. You
Yeah.
can be both.
I'm not familiar with that road at all.
Brother went the one of the brothers went the attorney route, so I was like, okay, I'll take the other end.
Okay.
I really fought it for a long time because I was just like, there's other things that I could do out there that's more praiseworthy, and the universe, God kept pulling me in the direction I was supposed to be in, and so I went into it full speed ahead. I got my degrees in psychology, and then I got my doctorate in counseling, and here I am.
Wow.
Dr.
Now,
Jasmine
I
Boone.
went to your website, and you specialize in 3 types of counseling.
Yes.
Individual, couples, and then traumatic.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask you a question about that. So I'm a veteran
Wow.
I've been in 3 different combat engagements. So
Thank you.
I suffer from PTSD, and it's something that I've dealt with for a long time. And had it not been for counseling, I don't know where I'd be right now. But what I learned was PTSD extends beyond the battlefield. There are people walking around with relationship PTSD or
Yeah.
just traumatic experience from childhood and things of that nature.
Yeah.
What kind of therapy do you offer? Or I'm sure it's individualized based on the
For sure,
patient, but what
yeah.
kind of approach do you take for someone who's dealing with traumatic past?
Well, I usually do 2 things. EMDR, I know a lot of people may not be familiar with that, but it's eye movement reprocessing desensitization, which is an amazing tool that I use to process trauma, painful experiences of any sort. And then there's also a CBT, cognitive behavioral approach that's focused on trauma. So I really do use that a lot. But I'm happy you brought up the point of, a lot of people, when you use the word trauma, and that's why I kind of transitioned it to painful experiences, they're like, oh, no, I've never been beaten, or I've never been in combat.
Right.
And it's like, yeah, that's trauma. That's very traumatic, absolutely. But there are other painful experiences that have absolutely impacted who you are, why you make the moves you make, the behavior you exhibit, the thoughts that you have.
The people that you date.
The people that you date. Hello, somebody.
Yes.
It is all a direct, the things that we go,
Reflection.
absolutely, direct reflection of some things that we've experienced in our past.
Right.
Now, let me ask you this. In counseling both singles and married couples, 'cause
Yeah.
you do couples counseling,
Absolutely,
correct?
yeah.
What are some of the consistencies and similarities that you see between both sets of individuals?
Honestly, it is their connection to their past that they had no clue about. A lot of my couples, they come in more to say, okay, so tell him he's wrong. Go ahead,
Yeah.
tell him,
Yeah.
right? And then by session 3 or 4, you're realizing when my dad left, that's why I'm so controlling with him, and I'm so fearful that he'll leave me for someone else.
You're dealing with projection at that point.
Absolutely. Or, he may recognize that, when his mom used to yell at him, that's why he's attracted to abusive women. So that is the number one thing, whether it's individual counseling or marital. It all ends up being individual because you have to dig into your past and see what you're bringing into the relationship. A lot of times I tell my clients, your spouse serves as your teacher. We like to think that it's all romantic and, let's fight and let's argue in the rain. But when all is said and done, the reason he can poke your nerves like that is because he's supposed to show you the wounds that you haven't healed yet.
Wow.
Right?
Can I ask you
real.
a personal question? I want to interject.
Now she has a rate schedule, so
Okay.
don't ask too many
Are you
questions.
married or single?
I'm single.
Oh, okay.
I'm
okay.
single, yeah.
Now, being a therapist, a psychologist, correct? Are you?
No,
okay.
counselor.
A counselor.
Mhm,
Okay, so being a counselor and being privy to meeting a lot of different people
Yeah.
that you meet every day, and you help them understand their traumas. How does that work in dating when you're sitting across the table from a guy and you can't help but read his body language? How does that work for you?
For me, as far as dating
turn
and
it off and
analyzing
on?
everybody, no, I cannot.
Okay.
So you sitting at Papa Do's? Okay, this is some
I'm
schizophrenic.
like, oh, he's broken.
Oh,
Yeah.
man.
I was wondering,
Uh,
I
because if you're the type of
cannot.
person
That's
that reads
narcissism?
energy-
Exactly.
That's you're a sociopath.
What do they call it? Male. What do they call it? What is the word?
Toxic masculinity?
Oh,
masculinity.
yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
I have a hard
Jesus.
time turning it off. First date is usually a therapy session. They're like, how the hell? How did
Wow.
you figure that out?
Yeah.
Always. I'm like, are you suffering from abandonment? Did your mom leave?
Oh my God! It turns. into a
Wow.
therapy
Yeah.
session.
It
Jesus.
does.
You almost want to tell him, I'm just going to leave my
They-
125 at the
Yeah.
table for
I
this
know I ain't
hour.
gonna get a second date, but if I could see you again, that would be great.
I should talk to
That's
my
gonna be a
therapist about
consultation.
turning it off.
Wow.
Jesus.
So,
That's funny.
in the same vein, how has social media impacted your line of work or getting your message out there? Because here's the thing. I grew up, I'm older than you,
Yeah.
but I grew up in a time where,
No.
I know.
for real, seriously,
Right.
she looks 12.
Yeah, you never know.
Well, you
True.
know.
You know what? That
How
melanin
old
be
are you?
popping, so 43.
Okay, you got me beat.
Yeah,
Okay.
I figured I
You
did.
got me beat.
So, but I grew up at a time where therapy, especially in the black community, was not only not a thing, but it was shunned upon.
Oh, yeah.
You know, especially growing up in a very religious household where we just prayed about stuff. And if God wasn't going to take you through it, then you need to just keep going
Yeah.
through it, right? So, how has social media influenced your practice, your field? You know, how have you gotten your message out there using social media?
I really think that social media helps promote the healthiness of coming into a therapist. You know, you're not going to get your arm broken and say, well, let me pray over till it heals.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're not going to do that. Like, everybody in the family is okay with you going to that doctor.
Well, before Obamacare, we did.
Well, yeah.
I'm playing. I'm sorry.
Then,
Go ahead.
look, then there's
I'm sorry,
that.
Doc. Go ahead.
There's also that piece.
Right.
But, you know, mom and dad and pastor are not going to say, go
Right.
to the doctor. And,
Right.
I mean, don't go to the doctor.
Right.
Pray over it. But when it comes to mental illness, it's a different, or mental wellness. It doesn't even have to be mental illness. And I think that's one of the stigmas, like, ain't nothing wrong with me.
Yeah.
We've all had a past. We've all had something that has hurt us. Nothing has to be wrong, right? So, but I think social media helps with that. I think it creates a normalcy in our community of sorts. We still have that stigma, but it is definitely dying down.
Right.
I'm seeing way more of us in our sessions and in our offices than even 2 years ago. So I think it's helping to get that word out and, destigmatize, therapy.
Yeah.
I really do.
How can we help, for example, on our platform, of course, we have the podcast, we have our hosts, we have our events.
Right.
We have those discussions, but in the community, because that was one of the things that we planned to talk about, the stigma and how we have been so jaded in regards to, mental wellness or seeking help. How can we help foster that involvement or engagement in mental wellness?
I really think things like what we're doing right now, honestly, and I think it would be even more helpful to take it into the church. Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I go to counseling, but it's at my church. And I don't want to sit here and knock that at all. But I will say with great certainty, there is a distinct difference, right? Sometimes, and you can love the Lord with all your heart, but sometimes you don't want to hear, just pray about it.
Right.
Sometimes you need tools.
You need somebody to help you dissect
Absolutely.
what is the root of the issue so that you
Absolutely.
can stop the repetitive behavior, because just praying about it is not helping you, girl. You
Because
on
faith with
baby
our
daddy
works.
number 4.
Hey.
What is it? Faith with our works
right.
is dead.
We need you to kind of figure it out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think it helps people to know, like, well, it wasn't enough for me. Is it okay if I come into therapy?
Right.
And yes, it is okay. And I think a lot of people in our community, again, we just say, God will take care of it. Pray for that miracle. And I always say a miracle could be just a change in perspective.
Yeah.
And if that miracle, comes in the form of him using one of his vessels, because there's not a session that I don't pray over, right? Him using one of his vessels to, help heal, that is your miracle. It doesn't only come, miracles don't come in one package. It's not just a drop in your lap and I'm all better.
Right.
I think another thing, we think that if you're in therapy, you are crazy.
No.
If you are in therapy, then you just recognize something needs to change.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be medication. It doesn't have to be any of that. I just want to change in perspective. I just want to change this area of my life. I just want to grow in this area. That's all it is. So I think just getting to know what therapy is really about. I also wonder, and I don't have any evidence or research to support this, but just from a lot of clients who come in the office, especially minorities, when they tell their parents, oh, I'm going into my first session, they'll say, well, don't talk about me.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh,
Go up there telling them all my
Right.
business.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that has a lot to do with it, because I think the parents, the aunts, the uncles take it personally immediately.
Sure.
Because that's guilt, though. That
Especially
means
if
that,
it's something that happened on their watch.
Yes.
Right.
And
or that they did themselves.
right. And I've had this conversation even with my mom. It's things that happened when I was growing up, and I don't blame my mother for it anymore. But in looking back, I felt like, even though I wasn't verbally saying I blamed my mom, but my behaviors in acting out was a direct reflection of me blaming her because of what I put her through as a preteen, et cetera, et cetera. But me looking back on it, I realized that what happened to me really wasn't any fault of my mother's. It's just something that happens in so many households worldwide, nationwide, especially here in the States, and it's told not to talk about it.
Yes.
Sweep it under the rug. And so me being a poet, writing about my experiences, when I first started to be vocal about my experiences, it was almost like my family was offended, but it wasn't to say that my mom was a bad mom or my dad was a bad dad, because my mom was an awesome mom. It's just certain things happened that was beyond her control, and I didn't feel like I could communicate with her. But it wasn't of anything that she did. It was other outside influences that traumatized me to believe that I could not do so. So when I go into therapy or counseling sessions and I'm bringing up those things that happened, it's not a pun to my mom, you know, where she may feel like, well, this happened on my watch. Well, you know, it's things that happen raising my boys that I wish I can go back and change, but nobody writes a handbook on how to be the perfect parent. And when you're a single mom and you're working multiple jobs to provide for your children, things fall through the cracks. You know, it could be right there under your nose. It could be someone that you love and trust, that you invited into your household, that can take advantage of the situation. You see it all the time. Yeah.
3 out of 4 of those instances are somebody you know. It's not strangers, just so we know. 3 out of 4. It is never strangers. It's somebody who's close to you in your home. But you raised 2 very important points, and I just want to thank you. For our community, we do 2 things. We sweep things under the rug, and we consider it strength, right? We're moving on. We're strong. We're not going to worry about that. We're not going to let that hold us down. Sweeping under the rug is not strength, and it's not fair to the person who has been hurt.
Right.
Correct.
It's just not fair, and sometimes therapy is just that. I have not been able to talk to anyone about this. It makes everyone in the family uncomfortable. So I'm coming to this safe place just to talk about it.
Yeah.
And the other piece is we are so loyal to our moms, and we are so loyal to our parents, and that is something that is a strength in our community. But sometimes it prevents people from coming in and talking about what has hurt them that their parents have done. And you said the right thing. It doesn't mean that your parents are bad parents. It doesn't mean that your parents didn't do their absolute best. But it is your right to say, even though I recognize you as a bad parent, that impacted me.
Right.
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
I love you.
Say when family doesn't acknowledge that you've even been harmed, it's just as
It's
hurtful as
painful.
what was done.
You know,
by the
I went through
abuser.
this, and I won't, for the sake of protecting feelings, I won't say, but someone very dear to me. I had a conversation with him, and I said, you know, I'm writing this poem about this, and he says, well, baby girl, some things are better left unsaid. It was almost like re-injuring me, re-traumatizing me all over again. So you want me to hold on to my secret, something that traumatized me that I lived through, because you worried about what people are going to think of you. How selfish, when you weren't the one to inflict it. So why should I have to keep it a secret? My story is going to help someone else tell theirs. It's going to tell little brown girls like me that it's okay to speak up, and that you don't have to wait till you're 40 years old to stand in your truth. You can do it at 10. You can do it at 6. You can do it whenever. And if who's around is not protecting you, then tell somebody else.
Yeah.
I remember reading about this. I can't remember who said it, but I thought it was so profound, especially as it relates to black women. We've taught our black women that strength is directly related to how much you can endure instead of how much you can avoid, right? So in that vein, as a black man, going to therapy was difficult. Not only was it difficult as a man, it was difficult as just a veteran, because I had to walk in there and tell someone I'm broken. There's something wrong with me. And I had physical manifestations, which I'm now feel blessed to have had them, because had I not, I probably wouldn't have recognized that something was wrong. But the nightmares, the behavior, all these things, I was fundamentally changing who I was. So, but it was still a humbling experience to sit there and tell my business, right? And so I went to your website, and there's 3 principles that you highlight as far as your therapy. And if I can repeat them, it's no judgment.
Absolutely.
Your story is sacred, which I love that part. And then trust, because your story is sacred. I think that's key.
Yeah.
Because and maybe you can expound upon this. You don't want to be the person going in. It's that saying, I wept because I had no shoes until I met a man with no feet.
My dad says that every day.
But here's the thing. A man with no feet don't need no damn shoes. And I feel like my problem is still
valid.
It's valid, right? So
your feelings are still valid.
And that was what I felt like walking into therapy. Like, what if my problems aren't big enough? Well, I'm sitting there looking at other people in the waiting room, and like, man, what if they went through something that I feel like I'm wasting your time as the doctor because you probably heard worse.
Yeah.
And hearing people say that, well, I've heard worse. It kind of makes you feel like, oh man.
But
maybe I
everybody
should've brought
deals
that
with
up.
trauma differently.
True.
You know?
But so as a therapist, how do
But
you?
your story is sacred.
Yeah, how do you show that sacred?
Sacrecy.
That's it.
There we go.
That's why
Secrecy,
that's why she a
That's
doctor.
why you about to get unfollowed by your friends.
Right. But how do you
Those are inside jokes.
display that?
Petty.
You know, each client, like when it's just me and that client, it's just me and that client, and it's just their story. Like there is no comparison. There is no like, oh, that's nothing, right?
Yeah.
Because my aim is to learn you. I want to learn your temperament. I want to learn who you were as a child, because then I know, like, if your mom used to spank you and now you're traumatized by it, you know, I now know your emotional anatomy, and I know why that hit way harder than it may hit for someone else. And so now I know that trauma is real for you, right? And it doesn't have to be something big, right? It doesn't have to be something bigger than what other people go through. Like, that was your truth, and that was big for you, and that hurt you. And that's enough for me. I just think learning the client, building that trust.
Yeah.
Like, I always tell my clients, like, in here, I'm incapable of judging.
Yeah.
Because we all have our journeys. We all have our past. We all have our paths that we've gone through. And so there's no judgment here. And, you know, I hear all types of things. Sometimes I have to go Google it afterwards.
Wow.
But that's just what that's your
Right.
journey,
Right.
you know? So, yeah, I absolutely hold each story sacred. All throughout the day, I'm thinking like, okay, I need to do this for them, and I need to like look up how I can help them understand and connect this dot. Like, I'm always working on it, because, you know, if I've been chosen to help heal, I take it seriously. Yeah.
So no judgment in the therapy
No.
office, but
No.
at Papa Do's, across the table, you still not judging?
You can't
No,
do it.
she's asking questions. She
No,
sees
I mean,
that's
what's
what we
happening.
do. We
There's a little bit of
interview.
judgment because, like, so maybe we should see each other again. We should, but in my
However.
office hours, 9.
That's not judgment. That's discernment.
That's
That's
discernment.
discernment.
Since,
So I have
since
a
I'm
question.
able to
So-
screen really easily,
Yeah.
you probably don't get to
Probably
be
wouldn't
across
even make it to
yeah,
Papa Do's.
Yeah, across the
Wow.
table. I'm screening by the first
She
phone
is
call.
diagnosing in the DMs,
Yeah.
y'all.
Hey, look, let me tell you something. You could read a lot in between those lines of those posts. I'm telling
Yes,
you.
you
So for
can.
those who have gone through traumatic experiences
Yeah.
or situations, what type of resources or advice do you typically provide, or how do you lead them or guide them, or where to?
First thing is acceptance,
Yeah.
right? And I know it sounds very cliche, but we go through our life not accepting what happened. Sweeping under the rug is one example of that. And it almost becomes a superpower once you just acknowledge and accept that it happened. So that's the first thing I really try to get them to do. If somebody has been assaulted or raped, and they'll say, you know, the night that happened, what happened? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's almost like
Instead of
when
that,
they
specifically what?
let that come out, that's half the battle.
Yeah.
That's half the battle, because you've been resisting the truth of what happened for so long.
Yeah.
So acceptance is one thing that I really try to get them to come to a place of acceptance. And then just helping them journey through it, whether it's through trauma processing or whatever, but just understanding what they went through, accepting what they went through, processing that, and then growing from it. Because it's so easy to point fingers, you know, and it's so easy to have family members live your life for you. Well, you shouldn't do that, or you shouldn't do this. And if you're a passive person, you're like, okay, right? So just finding your own power, customizing your power to fit you, and rewriting your story.
Yeah.
You know, a lot of our stories was given to us, you know, when we were younger. And so when you finally realize what has happened to you, rewrite your story.
Right.
From this point on, this is my life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, I actually try to exercise with myself.
Yeah.
Because a lot of times you have to go back and figure out where that trauma came from. And you know, they say we carry trauma in our womb. So I actually went back to my mother and I asked her about traumatic experiences that she may have had in her childhood, and she didn't really want to open up to me. But I think what she wasn't realizing is I was trying to understand her.
Right.
And not just understand her, but understand something about myself that I couldn't connect the dots to, you know, and understanding where the trauma started can kind of help you, you know, break those generational curses or traumas. It's just like spanking a kid, you know, grandmother, great grandmama, my mama, they all believed in extension cord whoopings. Well, I was so traumatized by that I almost didn't want to whip my kids because it was traumatizing for me to be with extension cord. But it was a learned behavior that was taught, handed down.
Yes.
So in their mind, they wasn't accumulating it to abuse, but that's what it was.
Right.
It was traumatic. So, and that's not a pun on them. It was just something that's learned.
Yeah.
You know, it's just you may see people from the country. You know, anybody know what the rule of thumb is? If anybody knew what the real rule of thumb is? Well, back in the South, you were allowed to hit your wife with anything as long as it wasn't thicker than your thumb.
Really?
And that's where the rule of thumb came from.
Wow.
So you see men around, walking around in their overalls and their wife beaters beating on their wife.
Yeah.
The tank top is
Yeah.
called a wife
Yeah.
beater. You know, and that goes back to relationships and what people are taught when you say the strength is measured by how much you can endure or to death do us part or better or worse. Now, define worse.
Right.
You know, that can sometimes pass down toxic behaviors because you didn't sit and watch your mom. Now, kudos to my mom. My mama didn't sit around and let nobody put their hands on her. She was gone. And so that's my thing. I'll be gone. 2 rules. Don't cheat on me. Don't beat on me. You put your hands on me, I'm gone. I don't care if we married. I don't care what's going on. I'm gone.
Yeah.
Because I believe that you set the tone for how you're supposed to be treated.
Yeah.
And so I see a lot of couples stay in toxic relationships because they feel like they're trying to meet that longevity mark. They want to have that pride in just saying, oh, we've been together for 10 years. But he been cheating on you for 7.
Yeah, right.
And he have 2 kids outside of you and 3 domestic violence assault on you, but you proud of that 10 years. No, that's not healthy.
You'll find a lot of couples are more in love with the time
and the
that
idea
they've been together
of it,
than they are with the idea of actually being happy, being apart. You know, well, we've been together for 20 years, and how has that worked out for you?
For you.
Right.
You know, when all is said and done, you know, there's a lot of societal pressures that come with being married, and like, you have to stay married, and you have to do this. And you know, when my clients come in, I ask, what do you want? We want to stay married, then I want you to stay married. Like, I'm going to be an advocate for whatever it is you want. My next question is, how willing are you to make this happen? But we can't allow other people to live that life for us. Like, if we've decided we're going to stay married, I'm in it with you, right? And we're going to work on it, and we're going to build trust, and we're going to, you know, get it all back, and we're going to do whatever we can. If it's healthy. You know, now if there's an instance where it's not healthy, I have to speak up. It is my duty to speak up and say, like, this, I don't know if this is healthy. I can't tell you to leave or stay, but this is unhealthy. But yeah, you're absolutely right. A lot of people do fall in love with the amount of time they've been together. They're holding on to what was. In the hopes that what was will be again. And sometimes you have to let go of that hope.
Well, I heard you talk, you were on another show as I was doing the research, and I heard you talking about how we should celebrate the changes. Like, instead of holding on to who we fell in love with, we should actually celebrate the fact that our partners as well as us have changed. Can you expound upon that?
Yes. So as humans, we are ever changing. Right? And that's something that we love about our babies. You know, they're growing up, they're getting so big. Look at them going to the 1st grade. But when it comes to our spouse, well, you don't do what you used to do anymore.
Right.
And you know, and it's just like, yeah, there's aspects of the marriage that we would want to keep. We want to keep the romance, but maybe that romance looks different. Right? And, you know, I didn't speak up as much before, but I'm finding myself now, like, can we celebrate that? Or did you like it because it benefited you? Right? Did it benefit you solely, or is it benefiting the marriage? So, yes, we absolutely have to celebrate change. Some of us get literally put down for changing.
Yeah.
And we're like, how does that work? I'm growing.
Right.
And, you know, a lot of times when people grow, it is a disservice to a lot of people who used that lack of growth before. Does that make sense?
Right.
Yes.
So when you were the person who never said no, that helped me.
Right.
Right.
That took a lot off of my back.
Right.
But now you're telling me no, and you're changing.
Yeah.
Right.
You're really acting different since
different.
you've
You're
been
not
in
the
therapy.
person-
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
I
I'm-
went
but I'm
through
tired.
that. I literally went through that. I got tired of people taking advantage of my kindness, and when you're a yes person, I realized that you have little self-worth because your self-worth is contingent on the acceptance of other people, and it wasn't until I was in a position where I couldn't say yes. It was almost like God tied my hands. He was like, I just want to show you something right quick. And I was my back was against the wall, and I usually you call Onae, can I borrow? Onae, can you loan me? Onae, can you give? Onae, I'm short, and I would come through. But I was in a position where I couldn't even come through for me, and all they see is what's on social media. So when they call me and say, hey, can I borrow $100? And I don't have it. But you was just in Cancun last week, but you don't know what happened. I told him my car the week before that.
That's why I ain't got it.
Right? I don't have it. But you so busy counting my coins
Right.
that you think I'm
Put your
acting
hands on
funny
my
when
pocket.
really I need some money. Can you
Yeah.
help me out? You know? And by me being forced to say no, I got to see how people really feel about me. And my feelings was hurt.
We
You know?
do not
And it
realize
will-
how often people will try to live and how often we will allow people to
People-
live our life. You
Yeah.
know, they'll tell you, well, you have this, you should give it to me, and we'll do it.
Yeah.
That's something that really needs to be recognized.
Yeah.
Well, it's the
Really
Mix and
needs to be
Singles podcast, and we are in the studio with Dr. Boone. Dr. Boone's in here
Jasmine
dropping
Boone.
straight knowledge and
With her pretty self.
using big words and clinical
y'all.
terms and all this other stuff.
Yeah, you can't block her though.
No, because she'll probably do something I don't even understand. So, Dr. Boone, we can find you at Dr. Boone on all your
Yes.
social media
Yes.
profiles, as well as your website, justyouTherapy.com.
Absolutely.
And on that website, if someone is looking for a therapist, they can actually hire
Yes.
you from there, correct?
Absolutely. You can I think it says book me
Yeah,
or
it
something
sure
like
does,
that. And I respond. It just sends a little email and I respond right away. I'm very prompt.
And we
What's
can
coming
also catch you on Saturday mornings.
Yes, KTSU.
Saturday
On
mornings is
KTSU?
every third Saturday on KTSU Impact Houston Live with Miss Wanda Adams
Yes,
and Kaylin
Kaylin
Laws.
Laws.
So they're amazing, and we
Yes.
just talk. Me and my other co-host, Dr. Angela Jones.
Yes.
We talk about relationships, marriage, trust, all things love. So we just kind of bring a little spin to that
Support
show.
KTSU.
Yes.
Yeah,
please.
definitely
Yes,
support
my
them. It's an
alma
awesome
mater.
show.
But
Yeah.
that is not therapy. Get in and see the doctor.
Yes.
Yes, support.
Can't just listen to the
support
show.
that.
And
Yes.
Therapy is definitely healthy,
Yeah.
especially if you're getting out of a toxic relationship. I definitely recommend going to therapy or seeking some sort of therapy before
I think
getting into a new
everybody should
relationship.
just go.
I
Just go get a
really
checkup.
think everyone should go. You will be surprised.
Yeah.
Okay, let
You
her
will
read
be
you real quick.
surprised.
So what's next? For
You know, I am focused on just really giving my all into therapy. Speaking engagements, I have one coming up very soon talking about social media to young girls, and I did it last year. I really enjoyed it. When they get that information, I will post it on my Instagram, the
We'll share it.
location. But yeah, just focusing on therapy, it brings my heart joy. And so that's my focus right now.
All right,
Yeah.
we are so excited to have
Thank you
had
so
you
much
today.
for coming in.
You're coming back.
You have
Oh,
to come
I'm
back.
ready.
Yeah,
I'm
'cause
ready.
we have so much more to deep dive into.
Yes, absolutely.
Thank you for hanging out with us
Thank you
tonight.
for having
and
me.
thank you guys for watching. Make sure that you subscribe to our YouTube channel, Mix and Single, MixNSingle. Make sure you're following us on Instagram and Facebook. If you are single and between the ages of 30 and 50, you should be in our group, which is also tagged on our Facebook business page. You can also find us at www.MixNSingleEvents.com. We have some things coming up, so if you would like to join us, please make sure that you are a part of the group. Tony, what's up with you next?
Just to say, I want to add to this. You should be subscribing to the YouTube channel.
Period.
There's so much good content on there, including the rest of this show. So you can
Yes.
follow me, Tony Massey
We
Speaks.
have about 15 shows.
Yeah, at least.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
TonyMasseySpeaks.com. I'm really proud of that website. Go check it out.
Yes.
And then I'm also launching a inspiration and motivational podcast, pre-recorded podcast that I'm going to be putting out called I Am. So I'm really excited about that. So
Hey.
Love it.
I just had to go
Shirt?
first.
I want one.
I had to go first before One goes because she always doing a lot more than me.
Oh, okay.
All right. This is your girl, One, the CEO. I want you guys to be on the lookout for One Way Out by Brothers Forever Productions. There's a new movie that'll be dropping soon.
Okay.
Also, I will be releasing my video in the month of November
Okay.
called Divorce. Check it out. Check it
Nice.
out. And One Publishing Performances is also accepting gigs,
Yes.
as well as publishing consultations. Go to the website, www.onney.net. Be sure to follow me on the gram, ONNEY, the CEO, on all social media platforms.
Yes.
Book me, and you won't be disappointed.
All right. Tony has books too. Look for him on
Yes.
Amazon.
Yeah.
Tony Massey.
Nice.
Tony Massey. Yes. So thank you all for joining us. We hope you enjoyed the show. We will see you guys in 2 weeks. I
right.
think. I love y'all. Good night.
Nice.
Nice.